For the past 3 years, we've been on a retirement travel journey. We started with a domestic trip RVing across the country in our Airstream. In the last 2 years, we've been traveling abroad, where we just visited our 75th country, the Philippines.
Today, we're going to share with you 15 lessons we've learned that can enhance your travel experience, enabling you to travel smarter and live that epic retirement that you've always dreamed of.
We're John and Bev, and we are the Retirement Travelers.
If you've just found us, we're a senior travel couple who are traveling the world full-time in retirement. We're blogging our adventures on our website, retirementtravelers.com, as well as making travel-related content here on YouTube.
So before we get started, we'd love it if you would hit subscribe.
Yeah, just click that little button. Now, come on, you can do it.
Also, head over to our website and sign up for our newsletter.
The first lesson we learned is the value of freeing up cash to travel more. Now, we realize that most people aren't interested in selling everything to travel the world full-time, but perhaps you have an expense or something that you rarely use or don't use to its full potential.
Let's take housing. The average retiree spends about 35% of their yearly expenses on housing. Now, many people keep the large family home that they no longer need rather than downsize to their current lifestyle. We understand the desire to stay in a home that is paid off, but what many people never consider is the time and money commitment of maintaining that home. Many people could free up money and set themselves up for the coming years of when they could travel more and have less responsibility.
You know, the lesson we learned as we took our Airstream trip across the country is that we were just fine living with less space and less stuff. We've replaced it with energizing experiences and a life full of possibilities through travel.
The second lesson we've learned is that DIY travel planning, doing it yourself, saves a lot of money. Generally, if you plan an international trip on your own, you can travel 2.5 times longer than if you go with a travel agency or tour group. And many people tell us that they just don't have the confidence to plan their own trip. I mean, we get it. It is daunting the first time, but it's really no different than planning a trip across the country.
You know, the way we do it is we simply take a map, we circle our target cities, we research our locations, we change our mind a few times, of course, and finally we settle on an itinerary. We connect the dots. When we land in a new place, we take a breath, we remain calm, we enter the country we've never been to before and head to our hotel. We venture out and explore, we get our bearings, and guess what? We manage just fine. And if we can do it, you can do it.
The third lesson we've learned is that RVing is a great way to travel around the country in retirement. We know many people never consider the experience, but it is an awesome way to see the country. Also, there are many companies that rent RVs, and we think renting is a great way to try it on for size and see if it's something that you enjoy before making a big investment.
When we traveled this way, we met lots of people, mostly retirees and their dogs.
Lots of dogs. Like everybody had a dog.
Everybody had a dog. Now, they were living a great lifestyle. Many were full-timers, but most were just weekend warriors, so to speak.
They were the nicest people in America, hands down, no doubt. Yeah. They take seriously the mantra of love your neighbor. We still talk about the people we met and the impact on our journey. Speaking of parks, do you want to go parking?
No, that's a blast from the past. You mean national parks?
Yes, there are 51 national parks in the continental United States. There are other lands and reserves, but the designation of national parks is very special. While traveling in the Airstream, we visited all of these parks and they took our breath away. Their beauty was undeniably sent from the heavens. Now, these are the crowning jewels of America.
And after paying federal taxes all my life, this is the one expense that's worth every penny. Setting aside land for posterity's sake and conservation is priceless. Not taking the time to see it in retirement is a waste. Now, while we travel the world, we talk about our experience seeing all of our country's national parks and how it will always be one of our favorite travel experiences in our lives.
Yeah, so go west, young man. Start there, get inspired, soak in the beauty, and get a reset on your life in retirement. I mean, you spent many years of working to pay for this treasure, so go see it.
When most people travel for vacation, they fly to a place, they stay in one area, and then they fly back home. But in retirement, you have the time to take a longer journey, and we highly recommend it. Now, this is something that's so rewarding about taking, a month or even 6 weeks to string together a long trip.
It also allows you to take 2 or more very different places and contrast them. For example, our last trip included New Zealand and Southeast Asia. These are completely different experiences, but by doing them in one long journey, we got to experience both without growing bored of either. And we loved New Zealand and the laid-back approach, and then we moved on to Vietnam and Thailand, and our senses seemed to just embrace the contrast. We felt so energized.
One aspect we enjoy is figuring out our travel path around the world. Now, we plan 2 long journeys each year. It's a fun challenge for us, like putting together a puzzle. And the more we travel, the better we get at it. We recently begun to embrace cruises for getting from one place to another. Now, this is especially helpful when we travel to, say, small locations, islands, out-of-the-way countries like the South Pacific or the west coast of Africa.
Now, most of the time, people take cruises to relax and enjoy the amenities on board, but don't forget to use them for transportation. Oftentimes, repositioning transatlantic or trans-Pacific cruises are half the price. I mean, they're certainly cheaper than a business class plane ticket, with the luxury for so much less. I mean, you get a room, all of your food, and your transportation, and it can add up to big savings on a long journey.
We love a great bargain, and there are certainly travel bargains to be had. Now, first, we don't consider ourselves budget travelers. We're no longer living on a shoestring, and we can pay a little bit more, but we absolutely hate to feel like we've wasted money on something that we could have done for less.
Yeah, in order to make our money last longer, we search for bargains. Now, one way we do this is choose a great travel credit card. We do pay a yearly fee for this, but the benefits far outweigh the cost. I mean, it's a bargain for us. We get points to use on our future travel, access to airport lounges so we never pay for food at airports, and other benefits. We see that as a bargain.
More so than the credit card points, we look for bargains in transportation, such as public transportation when it's available. Last year we traveled through the Balkans, and at the beginning of the trip, we hired drivers to transport us across the borders. About halfway through the trip, we thought, let's experiment with a regional bus. This turned out to be one of the favorite ways for us to travel. It was certainly much, much cheaper.
We'd also rather walk than be taken advantage of by a taxi driver. I mean, but on the flip side, we do pay for a better experience on a cruise or a flight if it serves a bigger purpose. I mean, I think our lesson is that, just think outside of the box when planning your trip, and don't be afraid of some, options like buses or metros that you might not take in your daily life.
One of the most common problems we hear with retirees is that one person in a relationship doesn't want to travel. Now, working this out and finding a compromise is a noble effort, and it breaks our heart to hear that, someone is longing to travel and their partner, wants to be a homebody. Our advice is to talk about it and work on this. If all else fails, find a friend to travel with who shares your passion.
We were fortunate that we shared a desire to travel, but we hear from people who make compromises and come to an agreement. Don't give up on your dream if your partner hates to travel, and most of the time you can find a solution.
Guys, take your sweetie on a trip.
Taking the road less traveled is not just a line from a poem, it is our favorite travel lesson. When we go to a country that we don't know, we always seem to center our exploration on major cities. However, it doesn't take long for us to start learning about the out-of-the-way places that we should have gone instead. Now, when we plan, we try to recognize that we are making this mistake. We love visiting cities, but it's the little towns, without the tourist trappings that give you the real feel for what life is in a country.
Another lesson we've learned is when we travel, we take advantage of different perspectives. Say, if you're in Dubai, don't just walk around the city. Go to the top of the Burj Khalifa. Go out on a boat cruise into the Persian Gulf and catch the metro. The same could be said for Panama City, New York City, Sydney, or almost any other major city around the world. The ability to experience a place greatly increases if you take advantage of different perspectives: land, sea, and air. Hiking to the highest vantage point or kayaking through the mangroves, it changes everything about a city or a location. We love looking at a place from the water. from the highest point and then from a city street.
If you've watched our channel for a while, you know that we advocate for carrying a backpack and packing very light. And we did a video where we talked about our packing principles. You can check it out later.
I think the lessons we've learned from carrying our stuff is that we're way better off. We're agile and we can move freely. Many people believe that a roller suitcase is the answer, but if you pack as light as possible, you will see that your travel experience will be much improved by carrying a backpack.
Yeah, cities in Europe are starting to push back on roller bags. They are noisy, and cities like Dubrovnik are even outlawing them. Starting this summer, you will have to carry your suitcase to your hotel in the Old Town. Locals hate hearing that horrible sound of roller suitcases on their quaint cobblestone streets, and they have decided to fine people almost $300 if you are caught rolling your bag.
As we've traveled, we've learned that there are many groups out there that are, have like-minded individuals such as us who love to travel. There are several Facebook groups we like. Our favorite is Senior Nomads. This is a senior couple, Debbie and Michael Campbell, who created a group so that senior travelers can share their experiences and ask questions. We also have a Facebook page, so while you're on Facebook, join our page.
The next lesson we have learned is that comfort matters more than fashion, and truthfully, nobody cares what you wear. Yes, it's fun to dress nice, but please don't bring clothes that are uncomfortable. Buy quality items that are more comfortable than fashionable.
That's right. Also, bring the most comfortable shoes you have. The worst travel experience is walking around, with blisters on your feet.
Yeah.
It's just silly, okay? It will completely ruin your trip. Make sure your shoes are comfortable and broken in.
Traveling full-time has one downside: waiting in long lines. We do everything we can to minimize the time we spent, doing this. Of course, many times we can't avoid it, but given an opportunity, we do what we can to manage it.
First, we have Global Entry ID card. Now, this card, includes the TSA pre-check, and it saves us from waiting in long lines at U.S. airports and helps us get through security and back into the country faster.
Also, we try to skip the lines when visiting a city by buying tickets to museums and such online before we get there. Many people aren't aware that this is available, and they end up waiting hours to get into a museum, not knowing that they had the option to pre-purchase a ticket and skip the line. It really never costs more.
That's right. Another tip we have is to travel across, country borders on Wednesdays. Midweek is much easier than the weekends when the locals are traveling for pleasure. The lines at the border crossings can be very long on weekends.
Yeah, the lesson we learned is that there are shortcuts to long lines, so take advantage of them. But don't cut in line.
No.
We hate that.
Yeah, we don't like line cutters. The last and most important lesson we've learned is that the clock is ticking on our lives. An elderly friend told us when we started traveling that we were doing the right thing because they had waited too long to travel and now they couldn't because of health issues. She said she wanted to see all the national parks, but she had missed her chance.
Yeah, don't be that person who lives their final years with regrets. Live your best life. Do the things you've dreamed of, and be brave.
So go west, young man, and then go east, south, and north.
See you next time.
Be sure to hit subscribe and follow along on our retirement journey around the world.